reason why you probably haven't heard from me back in a while as people who listen to Skinny E Media is mainly because I've been just busy with personal matters to deal with in my lifetime, you know, when work calls. But I thought to make some special time today to focus on a particular subject I think might be more relatable to people than me complaining about Donald Trump or me saying about Elfin Lied and Da Vinci Code being so inappropriate that they should be 15 or 18. We're going to talk about something I think many of you probably might be into behind the scenes that we don't know about it. Masculinity. It pertains to both of us, and I'm sure it pertains to you. 70% of my viewers are predominantly male anyways. I'm sure many of you probably think Andrew Tate and Jordan Peterson have all the answers. Well, we're going to dispel that. We're going to provide an alternative point of view from all of that shit. And here we have our usual co-host, Rob Bavister, behind the works, or as he likes to call himself, Fuckface, and I'm the cunt. But yes, I'm sure this will probably be a topic that you'll have a lot more to say about than I do, because in the eyes of society, I am probably viewed as a soy boy. I don't work in construction. I don't fix cars. I'm not obsessed with trying to, have sex with every woman on the planet. Oh, she got big tits and all that. No, I play my masculinity more along the lines of James Bond than I play, let's say, like Danny Dyer. We'll be having a movie out called Marching Powder, which I plan to see on tonight. But let's get this podcast started, and I'll let Rob speak more on this more so than me, because I'm probably the soy boy, and he's the hard man, but he's not a road man.
Well, I'm not exactly in construction or everything. I don't really have a manual labor job. I work in an office, although I do actually get to do some lift lumping and everything. So I get a bit of a workout. And likewise, when there are times when we have a delivery in just the place, and of course every guy in there has to help out with the unloading of the van. Of course, the women don't. So yeah, gender roles, what you do, but obviously, men are biological men anyway, are physically stronger than biological women on average. So it would be, I mean, yeah, clearly the results of the 2024 election in America, which among Gen Z, where the women predominantly voted Democrat, but the guys predominantly voted Republican, show there's been a bit of a one could say a crisis in masculinity. I think YouTuber Jimmy the Giant actually did a good video on this, so you could probably explain it a lot better than I can. But basically, the main takeaway, and that can encapsulate the problem, is that young men are quite insecure. And boy, do I remember from my youth just how true that is. I mean, you grow up and you can have this warped idea of masculinity fed into your brain, which you'll be constantly be chastised for like never meeting, or if you don't meet, or the 2% of people that might actually be able to meet it, and that's being generous probably. Because one thing about me is I got heavily into bodybuilding when I was about 16 years old, or into weightlifting. Why? Because I was really skinny as a kid, and of course I didn't have much muscle on me, something people were not afraid to point out and comment on. And I remember one girl, even feeling my arm at one point, said, "My God, he has no muscle. How can he be a man if you don't have any muscle?" So yeah, as soon as I could join a gym, I started lifting weights, and it's had its effect on me. But yeah, I mean, it's probably also affected my drinking habits as well, seeing as you're not a man if you don't drink excessively, and you can't down as much booze as possible. So yeah, exercise and excessive drinking, two things that are contradictory, but hey, logic doesn't really factor into this a huge amount. But yeah, I mean, well, it's a lot of feminists will tell you it is patriarchy. It affects men as well by making them have to fit into just these narrow definitions of what men and women are supposed to be. Yeah.
Well, I can vouch for that on some level because I've never had male role models in my life. I think it's quite public about my parents divorced. As I'm sure many millions of you listening have felt those same sort of issues. So unfortunately, someone has to turn to someone to find some sort of camaraderie. But that just wasn't there. I mean, I was at an all-boys school, and what did I get? A lot of people shouting and arguing and getting into fights. They bullied me for being partly American and calling me darky, patriarchal, not cool. And then I was very much threatened by the fact that I might turn gay because I had a crush on another pupil of mine who had more of an effeminate posture about him. And that was exciting to me. But thankfully, anime saved my life, so I didn't have to have these sort of inappropriate thoughts. But my masculinity is a little bit more unusual than probably most others. It sounds like you have it a lot harder than I did. Not a very big person as far as like, bulky and big. Although I used to do the running and I got
Not
like
at all,
the
though.
first prize marathon on the sprint when I was about like 8 or something. And I used to beat up a lot of the bullies because I was the tallest person in my class. So that if that is not masculinity, I don't know what is. And I was always flirting with female staff. I had a crush on a teacher who was from Wales, by the way. She had beautiful skin and lovely pair of feet. I gave her a foot rub one time, but that's probably inappropriate. But maybe it was her who was in the wrong, also than me.
Right.
Sorry, I'm rambling here.
Yeah. Let's try to stay on point.
Well, I mean, still with macho. Um, Even though I don't have a full beard like Rob Bavister, I'm not fully bald or receding hair. I do have grey hairs on my head from stress, and I do have a goatee, and I'm also quite tall. I'm 1.91 meters, and I'm not going to use imperial measurements, only Système International. So take that as you will.
Right.
In a half.
I'm 177, so I'm just about 5'9.5", or close to 5'10". So which is about average height for most guys in this country and America, France, and everything. But of course, you wouldn't know it going through Hollywood, because again, if you're talking about height, Cracked did an article on this. Quite a few years back actually, called basically about 6 backward ideas Hollywood still has about men. The first one they open with is, if you're less than 6 feet tall, you're not a real man.
I think that's complete bullshit.
Oh yeah, well, they sort of like talk about how Tom Cruise or Zac Efron or Mark Wahlberg all have to use, and even Sylvester Stallone, have had to use all these like camera tricks or like props and everything to just make themselves look about the same height as their other male co-stars. And it's just, why? It's just so ridiculous.
Oh.
I mean, I'll send you the actual. I'll send you the link now, actually.
Yeah, I'll be more than happy to check it after this podcast is done. As far as I'm concerned, I've had insecurities about my height because I was too tall. I always outgrowing stuff. My family had to buy stuff for me because I thought, it's growing quite fast.
Basically, I think I was predicted to grow taller than I was, but I think because I started lifting weights at 16, it might have stunted my growth. Might have, I don't know. Which is ironic when you think about it.
I find that a little weird, really. I mean, doing weights can stunt your own growth. I don't think so.
I had heard that. I mean, I don't know if it's actually true, but I'm just sort of suspect it might have been the case. I also think it's responsible for my early onset balding. But I only bring this up because, again, as a society, we're like really obsessed with male height. It's like we judge it's like we expect. I mean, a lot of dating profiles even say they like don't like guys who are under 6 feet tall and everything, which is pretty arbitrary, because convert it into metric. you start to realize, well, shows how arbitrary it is, but like, you start to realize, man, it's 6 foot. It just isn't that regular, normal thing. I mean, it's actually unusual, well, not massively unusually tall, but it is significantly taller than average. It's like 1 meter 83. There are a few countries in the world where the average male height gets that high.
No, but it's true. Majority of men generally tend to be in that sort of meter 80, meter 79 sort of
Between
range.
Well,
But this we're talking about.
between 175 and 180, essentially. Like I say, I'm 177 or 5'9.5", but basically that is my average height in this country for men.
No, it's true. I've seen the same numbers too. But as far as I'm concerned, to you and the public listening, height is not that big of a deal. I mean, I probably have some sort of height privilege saying that as someone who's about 1 meter 91, but I don't really like to penalize people just for being on the shorter end of things or of average stature. I think focusing on height and stuff, that's a bit superficial. It's a little different, like if you've got a certain income or, if you're a certain nationality, because, if you're UK or US, then the world's your oyster, really. But yeah, well, first off, dating profiles. No, just no. You don't know who exactly you're talking to behind that camera. It could be jailbait, 14-year-old masquerading as someone who's 25, or the person that you actually think you meet. It's like Shallow Hal. They're a bigger lady, but they try to portray themselves as thin. I don't know. I could be wrong on this because I don't use Tinder or Bumbles or Hinge.
I don't know. I've just noticed that a lot of people talking about male height, and they just do have this sort of unrealistic idea because, again, 6 foot is, with exception of a few countries in the world, far above average height for men. Well, obviously for women as well, but yeah, but it's just like one of the weird ideas that society has about masculinity. Obviously, the most obvious concept of masculinity, and it's one that really is not good and really is just not not impractical in a modern world, is just one's ability to beat people up.
Well,
I
might know from experience because I beat up quite a few bullies in my time, and I was disciplined and suspended from a school, I think, even because of my badass behavior.
Well, you're odd, aren't you? I mean, but I'm only mentioning it because, like, again, the reason why I got into that was what I wasn't very good at fighting at school. Again, probably a lot of it I put down to my lack of muscle mass and the lack of physical strength, which is why I got into freaking bodybuilding. Of course, a lot of it's just, of course, the ability to fight is more just psychological than anything else. But ultimately, it's really not something that you should really want to judge people by, because judging people by one's ability to inflict pain upon others is remarkably toxic. And I guess toxic masculinity is going to be something we're going to have to delve into on this podcast. But
absolutely.
I think there has to be just ways to judge masculinity in ways other than the ability to inflict pain upon others.
Well,
yeah, obviously. I mean, those people, let's face it, are classic examples of toxic masculinity. I remember like Bill Maher trying to do a skit of like saying, of using Zelensky as like an example to sort of defend masculinity and saying, see, you may not like toxic masculinity, but in a day when push comes to shove, of Zelensky showing that you need it. It's like, no, he's not. Zelensky is showing positive masculinity. Putin is showing toxic masculinity because Putin is trying to dominate others, which is the toxic element. Zelensky is trying to defend people, defend those who are weaker, which is the positive and healthy element of masculinity. My idea of a good example of someone I consider to be a healthy and non-toxic role model for male role model for guys everywhere would of course be David Attenborough, if you think about it.
Well, he's not threatening, and he's very well educated.
Very well educated, very well knowledgeable.
I just did it right now.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, I was saying I thought David Attenborough was always a good role model for just for a good male role model for men in general, because he exuberates all the exuberates. Yeah, I think exuberates the right word. All the positive aspects that people like to claim about masculinity, and yet none of the toxic traits like I don't know, aggression, insecurities, emotional repression and everything, a willingness, sadism and all that, and and all that stuff.
Well, he's certainly well, to the average eye, he's deemed as non-threatening, but I would presume for some people, because of his standing and his very educated status, he's probably, in some respects, they probably might call him a soy boy. Also, because his politics are probably more left of center, because he purports climate change is a theory, not a hoax.
Yeah, but he's actually like, yeah, but that's the thing though. He's basing it on scientific fact, and of course, it's about fact, not feeling, and logic, not emotion, which is one of the things we're told that men are supposed to be about. Okay, I don't disagree. Well, I think everyone should be about that. It's just basically being level-headed and stoic and able to think and just being rational, which, well, that is a virtue. I think everyone should try to be it. But yeah. Oh, sorry.
No.
Without basically being emotional repression, which can lead to horrendous mental health problems, probably.
I know for a lot of men, they don't like to open up their feelings too well. There's a theory out there. I've seen a few documentaries on this. If you get men to do certain things that they can relate to, like fixing cars or assembling apart something, they're a lot more likely to open up. Like they might be saying, like, "Oh, I was just down there, Mrs. She said she wanted this, but I just didn't have the funds for that. You know what I got her? I got her this. I took my kids out to Alton Towers and I sorted them out right. You know what? The best thing I ever heard was my son saying he got a nice ice cream. I paid for my money. And then he said, Daddy, I'll pay you back in return. See how I'm doing that there, using the whole East End Cockney accent, because it makes it more open to people, but also there's also a bit of a class divide when it comes to masculinity. Working class fellas are certainly a lot more likely to impose their own sort of strict criteria about what it means to be a bloke. Upper and middle class people are a little bit more flexible with their identity a bit. I mean, I'm not telling you how much I make as far as income, but I'm not one of those blokes who finds drinking on a Friday night your liver out, getting in the fights, shagging any woman out on the street, and shouting when you're watching West Ham play against Man United. That's not my idea of a good time. What my idea of a good time is, oh, how very bourgeois of you. Going to the library, going to the cinema, looking at Reddit and being paranoid. But you know what I show my masculinity of? Not only my height, but I always like to make people laugh. They always say men are funnier, but that's still open to debate. Although I'm still a virgin, I'm probably a good lover. I'm a very sensual man. I would, you know, touch you in places that wouldn't be possible. I wouldn't just be a fuck machine. You know, oh, done over. That's boring. I'm gonna paint a picture of how I'm like to people. Let's say for example, typical bloke. Oh, I support reform. Oh, Trump. He's the next coming of Jesus. But I will let you know your place. Like, okay, we agree on some things, but say no further because they think if you attack them, if you question about their sexuality or who they vote for, what this or that, you're belittling their manhood and you're threatening to them. And you know how men are like when they feel threatened by their own masculinity, they will do violence, and it's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Well, no shit. This is like what a lot of women have been talking about. But basically, they have to just completely be tiptoe around a lot of men with and not say anything that might threaten their masculinity for fear of reprisals. There's a reason why, like, mostly when guys hit on women at bars or clubs or whatever, they just basically, rather than just try to turn them down, versus going on the basis that a girl isn't interested, they'll just give them a fake number, or may even give them a real number and just block them later because, again, they may try and test the number out because, when guys get rejected by women, they don't tend to take it very well. And more likely just to react with violence. In fact, yeah. Where was I going with this? But men just tend, it's due to men's insecurities and men's not being confident in their own masculinity, that they feel the need to enforce it through violence, usually violence towards women, and because they know said women can't fight back due to the size and strength difference. And well, that's probably how you end up with cases like Sarah Everard, or most of these the incel movement in general. And let's face it, I mean, the whole shtick is we're going to commit acts of violence because we can't get laid. And it's like, and of course, men who can't get laid are incredibly disparaged by society and seen as basically not being proper men, which causes men to try and get laid, try whatever they can to get laid, which requires them doing some rather skeevy tactics, things that, let's face it, could really be described as rapey, or at least predatory, like making sure women are incredibly drunk, or just listen to pickup artists like Rouge Feast and they say, all right, yeah, she might be saying no, but you need to find out ways in which to get round this rejection and alter her mind to get her to say yes. It's like, dude, that is like really fucked up.
Or beyond that, I'll say it once and I'll say it again. There's no need to kill or rape or harm woman just because of you can't have sex, or even because of sex or dating. There's really no point. There's many fish out there in the sea. If you're going to take your anger out on the world or society, use it at least more constructively, like at the government or the lawyers. Don't be taking it on just average people on the street who did you no harm. Maybe I'll be called a soy boy for that. I'm sorry I used that word, but I meet a lot of men, even though most of my role models in my life are female. You always sense a hard man every time you approach. And some of these men who I think they look like soy boys, they sound like hard men. They got this sort of moppy haircut. They look like a twink. But I tell you right now, they start the most right-wing shit. Just to get it out there, and I'm sorry I'm going to say this out in the open.
I may be to some people considered an incel because I am a virgin and I've never really been successful. And I fear that, if you're dating, they'll say, oh, because I'm not fully masculine, because I'm not fully white, and I'm not very wealthy, no, means I don't matter to people. And I just embrace that. I don't really try to fight against it because the system wants you to fail. I think with the Me Too movement, it's
I'm sorry I said that to the public, but I think it had to come out some way.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about that. I think you may be overthinking this and everything. But I always said to like the likes of the incel movement, thought about the likes of the incel movement. It's like, dude, if you're pissed off that much about not getting laid and everything, you want to get laid that badly, just go visit a sex worker. You know, they're willing to have sex with you in exchange for money. I'm pretty certain they've probably had worse. They've had worse clients than you. Or actually, considering some of these fuckers, I don't know. But I mean, but of course, again, they don't want to do that because there's a stigma around sex work kind of thing and soliciting and basically soliciting work from it. Soliciting it. Of course, I mean, they say, oh, well, it's not real sex, so I don't have to pay for it and everything. And of course, again, the toxic masculinity is in. The pressure of men to quote unquote score and rack up as many and have sex with as many women as possible. Well, I mean, it probably does contribute to what many people are referred to as rape culture, which again, toxic masculinity very much bleeds into. Very much bleeds into, or even leans into, or just is a cause of.
Oh, absolutely that. Well, the idea that you can somehow spike a woman's strength just so you can abuse her, whatever you want to do with her, that just upsets me. Do these people not realize the law, makes it very clear that sex without consent is rape? It's almost like they don't care about, spending much of their time behind bars.
I don't think it's so. Well,
if you've been in the prison,
it's not so much that, Mark. I mean, a lot of these guys will just, they won't do it just out of fear of jail time and nothing else. You may find that these people probably have a very narrow definition of rape and a very broad definition of consent.
I'm afraid so. You've got a lot of these sort of like videos, not just Andrew Tate, but I've been seeing this thing called the passport bros, where they go to other countries because they think that they're easier, which comes into this bizarre stereotypes about Eastern European women. They're all sluts, whores. You can bang them quite quick, and they're cheap. Or they go to like Southeast Asia, like the Philippines, and Malaysia, to try to get some punani, or they want to get a mail order bride from Thailand because at least their women from that culture are somehow easier to deal with than white European women who are all sort of feminized. I've seen all the videos and all the commentary. I find it quite insulting, really. What's wrong with this picture?
Oh, everything. I mean, apart from anything else, a lot of it can lean into incredibly racial stereotypes too. If we're talking about like depictions of masculinity, and it's just typical, most Asian men, East Asian men, have never sort of fit into the Western definition of manhood, because people in the East Asia tend to be a bit shorter than people in the West, and they tend to be a bit thinner as well. Of course, men over an average shorter and average thinner tend to not have quite as much facial. That just might be because they're more clean shaven. I don't know. So of course we've had the stereotype of the rather geeky, nerdy Asian type who is basically the antithesis of anything macho. To say nothing of how black men have been depicted in media of just being like overly masculine and nothing else, which is an old kettle of fish. Don't really want to get into because it is not nice.
Well, I'll speak as this is someone who's of BAME background, or at least partially. Yes, it is true that they always like to portray brothers as some sort of like hypermasculine stud. They used to call them bucks, which is an ethnic slur for that sort of thing. Like they're almost like a horse. They'll do the job, but at that same time, they use that as weaponization against black men, and I'm sure they also use it against Arabs as they're so masculine they may rape your white woman. So keep them away. There's all these Asian grooming gangs. They might come for your lily white ass with the blue eyes and tell you to have sex with Farouk or Al Khadid. I've seen all these propaganda pieces and racial paranoia that stems into sort of fears about rape or interracial love, and they think they're out to rape them. I don't date women for this reason because people assume that. That's why I have some of the fetishes in my head play upon sort of disturbing views about I'm the evil immigrant with the swarthy skin who's about to corrupt your the pale Christian ass. I know that you probably will think that's offensive, but take my word for it. Anytime I
I do find
see
it offensive. You said I do find it offensive. You said ass like a seppo. When you're a British person, you should say arse.
I can be flexible. When I mean by ass, I mean buttocks, bum, bottom. The theme song I was going to reference, but yeah. In all fairness, they're going to corrupt you. But you are right about the East Asian stereotype that they're viewed as almost effeminate. And it also doesn't help that you sometimes have like photos and media like BTS and those K-pop groups that look like very handsome, twinky men. Younger man who's a bit effeminate and no facial hair, but they're all like pretty boys or lady men. He, she's. I know I'm getting this sort of gender, sexual orientation topics, but there's truth to it. But have they never seen Bruce Lee or like Jet Li? You can't get more masculine than a martial artist.
Well, that's true. Although they'll probably bring up the fact that they're generally quite diminutive as well. It's attacking them, as was made jokes about Jet Li's character in the first Expendables movie.
Oh, I remember from some of the scenes like, oh, we got like one half of a man here. But
what are you, size 3? Bring it, Happy Feet.
Oh, bless. I mean, it's probably not PC to show nowadays, but a lot of men are, in all fairness, not politically correct. I'm not very PC myself. Rob is a little bit more careful with his words. If you've ever been inside a automotive garage or in a warehouse where it's all full of testosterone, you'll hear the stupidest shit. I was fucking this bitch. I beat these sons of bitches. This fucking bastard. He did this to me. Oh, for fucking this. Even I sort of have to play upon these sort of macho grandstanding, they call it, because I don't want to be viewed as some sort of soy boy or sissy. And I'm sorry to use homophobic slurs, but, I assume what most men think.
I know. I think that basically sorry, where was I going with this? The correct solution is people basically. The trick is we need to educate people better on how to define masculinity and not to have such narrow definitions of gender roles and whatnot. I mean, I've never understood growing up why it was considered like chocolate ice cream for guys, strawberry ice cream for girls. I love strawberry ice cream. It's my favorite flavor. I don't like chocolate ice cream. I mean, I don't get that.
I've never heard that stereotype.
Well, I think it's because strawberry ice cream is pink, and of course, pink's a girly color. So, of course, it must be strawberry ice cream must be purely for girls. But that's fucked up, man. Strawberry ice cream is my favorite one, although I do like mint chocolate ice cream quite closely, and that's kind of considered masculine. But again, it's fucking food, dude. What the fuck are people thinking? To say nothing of like the idea of cats and dogs and everything. Like, oh, dogs are for guys and cats are for girls and everything, or birds as we would talk about. But yeah, but I got a cat. I'm much more a cat guy than a dog guy. Everything. But again,
I could see you with a pit bull.
Oh God, no, mate, no. I was going to have a dog, I'd probably have something like a Chow Chow or a big Alsatian or just something that looks like a big cuddly teddy bear type.
Okay, to each his own, I suppose. But even those who say, I'm a real man, I'm very macho, they can contradict themselves too. Take my word for it. Even though I'm of great height, one of my favorite alcoholic drinks of all time is Bailey's, which is considered a woman's drink, and I have no shame of drinking or buying that from the supermarket. I think it's delicious, but it will get you drunk quite fast. But I'm supposed to be as a bloke, a real bloke, not one of those upper class sissies who works in Canary Wharf. I'm supposed to drink beer and bitter on tap. I've had Guinness. It's good, but most beer tastes like piss, and it's all a bit sour and acidic for me, and it gives
There are
me
some there are some nicer
gastrointestinal
beer.
problems.
There are some nicer beers from continental Europe. I do get your or further abroad, but I do get your point. I mean, I had a hard time getting into beer as I grew up, but I managed to just adapt the taste. But yeah, it is essentially just wheat water. I mean, it's not surprising so many people don't want to drink it. Of course, I mean, with alcohol pops growing up, we've got like hard seltzers nowadays, and of course you have fruity cocktails and everything, and of course, which of course are a great way to get more alcohol into you with a better tasting. But it's like, oh, I don't want to drink that. It's a girl's drink. And basically, if you drink, any guy who drinks it is insert homophobic slur here.
Well, I think they'll be very mistaken because when I was growing up, most of the people who I saw had WKDs were mostly a bunch of lads, on a Friday night at Weatherspoons. I
Yeah,
never
I
really
think that one.
found it as a
I think.
woman's drink.
What about WKD? Trying to remember if I can remember WKDs and everything. Of course, one of the things I grew up with in the 90s, which you wouldn't be old, I don't think you'd be old enough to remember, Mark, I don't think you would be, is the whole lad culture and everything. Well, although no, actually, you might not have had, they wouldn't have been loaded of it, but you'd be old enough to remember Zoo and Nuts magazines, wouldn't you?
Hell yeah, of course. I mean, I wanted to see what those magazines were about, but I wasn't allowed to because, it had the sexual content. I thought it was porn. But I know you said on the porn podcast that we did that, no, it's just lads mags. It's not
Well,
Playboy
you
or
can,
Hustler.
well, we can see some titties maybe. I think you saw more in Loaded and GQ and whatnot. There's a loaded, yeah, Loaded was lads mags. There's a few ones back in the 90s. I can't remember. FHM and GQ. I don't think they just show as many titties and everything, but where was I? Yeah, but of course that was coming out in the 90s. They had all the lad culture, and of course you had sitcoms like all the lads mags and everything. But you had sitcoms like Men Behaving Badly and Goodnight Sweetheart in the early days was trying to lean into it as well. And of course, I guess you say Bottom was part of it. The thing is, Bottom was so clearly a deconstruction of that stuff and a send up of it, whereas like things like shows like Men Behaving Badly leaned so much into it with the the beer and the fags and that's cigarettes, just in case any Americans are listening. Right, and the chasing birds and the watching the footy and everything, and it's just. Yeah, it's kind of cringe looking back at it now. But I remember growing up, that's who I used to idolize. That's who I wanted to be. To say nothing of how much I used to watch World's Strongest Man, and to me, they were always like the epitome of masculinity. But I mean, and also while we're at speaking of Bottom, I always found Rick Mel to be another good example of positive masculinity, and Aid Edmondson as well, I guess.
Ed Edmondson is Rob Bavister's long lost older brother or his father. Shh, don't just tell him. They almost look the same if you took Aid's glasses off. I said that for you, just trying to make you laugh.
Yeah, I got a chuckle out of it. It was a very very funny.
But how is he a positive role model? Because I am aware from past conversations, the alternative comedy circuit was done to sort of dispel the sort of right-wing banter that was popular like 70s and 80s comedy, like you said, Jim
It
Davidson.
was. It is.
But Rick
yes.
Mile,
Hence, it's a positive role model.
okay, so you said it within that sort of context, because the only sort of stories I've heard about him really was like he had some divorce issues and he wasn't very nice to his wife, and then probably that helped contribute to his untimely death, where he had a heart attack as he was walking. I could be wrong on this, but you're the Rick expert. I'm not. I don't have invested interest except for Drop Dead Fred.
Right. I haven't heard anything to suggest he was abusive towards his wife or anything. I mean, yeah, married,
But
makeups. Barbara Robin had 3 children who met in 81, blah, blah, blah. Policy affair. Maya, upon discovering everyone was pregnant, Maya left Maya. That's an eloper.
well, not abusive, but just like he didn't treat his wife very well, and the divorce settlement was.
Well, okay. I looks like he might have had an affair with someone else when he was during that time. So okay, but all in all, I mean, his kids don't seem to have any sort of bad memories of him or bad opinions of him. And let's face it, everyone who's met him says he was like quite a what was it?
A good bloke.
What the fuck? Positive person, just generally being the opposite of oh god, what's the opposite? What's the opposite? Oh, what's the word that was you? What's the opposite? I just can't remember what the word to it. They used to describe Keanu Reeves recently, but I can't fucking remember it.
Like a positive role model. Good man.
Yeah, positive now. Yeah. Well, yeah, just a good bloke. The word will come to me eventually, but yeah, yeah. From what I hear, that's most people have called it. I've called him that.
Well, I'll take your word for it. You know a lot more about Rick and Aid than I ever will. So, I know sometimes with actors and stuff, they have a persona, on TV and films that doesn't always translate to the real world. A good example of this is Danny Dyer or Ross Kemp. They're always portrayed as hard men, always beating people up and saying, "If you don't pay my money, you fucking cunt, I'll break your fucking fingers off, you complete twat, you mug." Ah! But in real life, Danny Dyer is actually supportive of the LGBT community, and he's said, "Hey, you lads, stop fighting about, stop mucking about." And then Ross Kemp, he even done some dramas, and doesn't try to go past the whole "I'm a hard guy, I went to a prison in Afghanistan with all these Taliban members."
Yeah, I did see that and everything. I don't know if he might try to leans into it, but I don't know whether or not there would be ideas of toxic guys who don't want to associate, who shouldn't be allowed to associate masculine, allowed to monopolize the opinion of masculinity. But of course, another one who just shouldn't be allowed to, and this can't be stressed enough, is Jeremy Clarkson.
Oh, I might be in a bit of trouble for this one because I'm a fan of Top Gear and I love cars. So I'm not a very reliable person to criticize Jeremy, but yeah, he is obsessed with perpetuating old stereotypes about "I'm a real bloke, I love my cars like I love my woman." And the way he's talked about Duchess Meghan, that's one of the handful of things I will not forgive him for, because that was just crass and kind of sexually deviant. Like, he wants to see her naked and have feces thrown at her. Like, what the fuck? Also, he wishes union people would be shot and all kinds of crazy shit like "eeny, meeny, miny, mo, catching by the toe." So,
yeah, you don't have to actually say the actual word, but yeah, he's a dick. And obviously, he pleased that he fucking appeals to that sort of, both a Daily Mail reading crowd and also a tabloid and Sun reading crowd, again, who lean in with a whole lads mags and the Zoo and Nuts magazines, and yeah, just generally very bad depictions of masculinity. So yeah, I just don't think people like him should be able to define what masculinity is. Again, I've had some good examples. Rick Mail and both Rick and Aid, as well as David Attenborough, being good examples, better examples than most other people I could think of.
My favorite male role model, as far as I'm concerned, would probably be well, I've got many of them, but if you talk about within the sort of media atmosphere, that's a bit of a tall order. Well, I can say for musician Luke Vibert or Wagon Christ, he's a great spokesperson. He's kind of unassuming, and I've heard from a certain source, because I like talking to musicians, especially ones that I used to grow up with as a teenager, many years ago. He said, he's quite shy, keeps to himself, and he's just mainly in it for the music, and he's not really out there just trying to snort all the drugs and shag everyone. He will dabble in a little bit of weed, but that's par for the course for most musicians, especially if it's sort of like electronic and hip hop stuff.
Well, there's nothing wrong with smoking weed and everything. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with engaging a bit of recreational drug usage anyway. Obviously, I don't think you should do it excessively. You shouldn't drink excessively. I mean, again, I think this is why it's called toxic masculinity, because it just basically glorifies excessive intoxication and excessive unhealthy unhealthy concepts, both physically and mentally. So yeah, hence for it. So that's why it's toxic.
No, absolutely. Well, one of the things that I find a little bit irony.
Mark, can I just interject? I think the term I may have been looking for may have been wholesome. I'll get back to you on that. Anyway, as you were.
Well, I find the irony about that is a lot of the men who like to say, "Oh, I've shagged all these people, or I've done all these drugs, and I drank this many pints." Beer will make you fat and get you man boobs. Like me, I've got man boobs, but I don't really drink alcohol that much. Also, cigarettes will make you more impotent. Smoke too much, and you could probably have a limp dick. And I think with having sex with all these people, well, obviously you'll get syphilis, gonorrhea, AIDS, HIV, and that will kill you off quite slowly, make you quite ill, blotches on your skin. So no, I think there's that feeling that you can live a consequence-free life, but at the same time you'll regret it when push comes to shove. So if you're worried about going to prison for stabbing someone or frauding someone, the same could be said for unprotected sex or excessive drinking and drug use. Also, cannabis, even though people smoke it, they think, hey, that's cool, Rasta man, it will make you overweight if you just high up on the ganja a lot.
Well,
you know how men are a bit insecure about being overweight or having man breasts. Well, some of that can cause that. The very things that, oh, I'm a real man, I do all this, and you'll turn into the very thing that you hate if you're not careful. I don't know. I may be wrong on this, but you can at least tell me that if you smoke too much weed, because I know you said you dabble in the green a bit, it will make you overweight because you're like, I better have some crisps.
Well, I suppose it might cause you to get the munchies and everything. Of course, if you don't end up eating too much, it won't really make much effect on you, because unlike drinking beer, where there's loads of calories just in that, there isn't really calories in, as I know of, in the actual herb itself, in the weed itself. But of course, you may end up eating loads and getting fat. But I don't know about that, to be honest.
I've heard a few stories there. Not to say that I've ever smoked a little green. I have no desire to. I don't like the smell, but I do smoke tobacco. But thankfully, because I haven't had one in at least a year and a half, thankfully I'm not impotent. And that's one thing a lot of men are really scared of, that they can't perform. I don't know for you, because you've admitted to past steroid use and stuff. if you can perform down there, or if you've got like some venereal disease. You don't
Not that I
need to tell
know
me
of, no.
everything.
But again, well, this may sound like I'm trying to protest anything, but no, I haven't had any problems with performances or anything.
All right there. Well, I guess you can even talk about like cancers and certain health problems, because men are always most likely to have problems with their prostate, liver, colon cancer, or bowel cancer. You got to get that checked when you turn like 40 or 35, I think.
Well, yeah, because being health
Oh.
conscious is, again, considered a not masculine trait. So, of course, naturally, naturally, of course, men are socially conditioned to do more self-destructive stuff as we've been going into. And again, that's kind of like that's why we need to redefine masculinity again. It's probably why also the emotional repression and discouraging them from seeking help. It's probably why more men commit suicide than women. At least I think they do anyway.
No, that is a very large part of it. I mean, I should speak from experience. I tried to take my own life out with a tank of helium and putting plastic and tape all over it onto me. I'm still alive, but I think a large part of it was based on insecurities I've had. Um, it's to be said, though, and maybe I am some sort of right-wing extremist, I do think men secretly benefit under leftist policies than under right-wing ones. They may think they don't because of all the feminazis and the gays, but trust me, left-wingers want to help you get employment, protect your white as an employee through unions, or at least that's what we hope real leftists do, not Starmer or Joe Biden leftists who are more on the center or neoliberal. They also want
Well, yeah,
to
everyone
promote.
everyone benefits more under a more leftist government. Well, except for the super uber rich. But let's face it, the lack of benefit. The benefits they're going to lose will be so few as to be like statistically negligible. Well, okay, then they probably won't be able to have like multiple billions, but I mean, in a true leftist government, no one will ever get that rich. But then again, the whole point, no one will be poor. But I mean, yeah. So it's like maybe like what the richest 1% won't benefit as much under a left-wing government as under a right-wing government. But hey ho, there's a sacrifice I'd be willing to make for the vast majority of other people on this planet.
Well, that's the thing I find, quite ironic is they assume that they're not in their favor, and then, again, there's sort of the topic of the manosphere with Tate and Peterson, who seem to be dominating conversation as to why you, as a man, are failing society because of feminazis. They use that feminazi word a lot. I really don't like it.
It's a stupid
They're
word. And it's
targeting the wrong people.
coined by Rush Limbaugh.
Oh, well, he's the progenitor of all that. There's just talk radio has now entered into the internet space, and YouTube and all these sites are now operating as the void for that sort of thing. I just can't take people like Joe Rogan and all that very seriously, even though they're certainly a hell of a lot more popular than us or anyone who's promoting positive masculinity. Like you said, that Jimmy Durante kid or Hassan Piquer. I don't know these names, but all I know is that they sort of represent the left wing ends of masculinity.
Jimmy Durante? No, Jimmy the Giant. That's what it was.
Oh, Jimmy the Giant. Or Hassan Piquer. I don't know if that's his.
Hassan Pike, yeah. Hassan Pike, yeah. I don't really follow him massively, to be honest. Most I get mine from Carl Kalensky, who can. Well, he's all right. He's on. He's on the. I think he's okay. A lot of people give him a bit of flack because he can seem a bit dude broy in sometimes, but no, I don't think he is. I think he might put it on to try and like win over some of those types to it, those audiences to those types to our side, which is kind of right. I mean, let's face it. I mean, we talk about like when we say this toxic masculinity, we only just talk about a very specific form of masculinity, which is, again, as we say, toxic. Not all not all masculinity is bad. I mean, being willing to defend the weak from those who being willing to defend those who can't defend themselves is a positive trait. Let's face it, some of the stuff that us blokes are into, it's all right. I mean, violent video games, I've got no problem with them. I mean, the latest Doom games are just about as testosterone fueled as possible, and fucking hell, ain't nothing wrong with them. I inhale that shit. To say nothing of like all the metal I listen to, and when it comes down to it, metal has a reputation of being possibly one of the, if not the most masculine of freaking genres of metal, of music even. And yeah, I mean, there can be more feminine aspects to metal, no doubt. But yeah, metal does have a very macho and masculine reputation to it, and it does like to lean into it. And there's nothing wrong with it as long as it is used positively, not again in a vicious, harmful, and insidious way, as is being mentioned.
It very much depends on who's willing to project that image, because nowadays everyone seems to have made their minds up. I'll tell you one thing. Sort of like some of those sort of Gen X type musicians who represent the sort of like left wing end of masculinity, like your Rage Against the Machines, Sat De La Rocha, and Tom Morello, they just don't really exist anymore. That void has sort of been closed in by sort of right wing masculine types, or those who have more libertarian leanings. And that seems to be the sort of dominant force here. But hopefully we can get some more voices to represent sort of more left-wing ends of the spectrum. I mean, Jason Williamson from Sleeth and Mods. I know that's sort of electronic or sort of post-punk stuff. That's not really in your style. To me, it is. I think he's a great spokesperson for sort of men's causes, at least in the UK end of things. And no one I am aware of hates him like they hate, I don't know, like Russell Howard or Owen Jones, who I think they're left wing. I could be wrong, but there's nothing very macho about Russell Howard. He looks like some sort of middle class, educated Bristol person who probably looks a bit gay or twinky.
Well, he has always like, yeah. Well, his whole thing was basically doing that whole thing of challenging gender norms and everything. And now he's just leaned into the whole Joe Rogan dude bro type. It's like, okay, I never thought much of Russell Brand anyway. I mean, I found him a bit of a stupid hippie dickhead and everything. And of course, these hippie types are they're never great. One of my friends I've just found out who's much of a hippie type and everything and loves all that new age shit. Oh, and is a Trump supporter. Ain't that great? Let's face it.
If you said that 20 years ago, I would have been quite shocked there, because I usually associate hippies with sort of the bourgeois left. That's always how it's been. But now, we're having sort of like right-wing voices being dominated by anti-vaccine and anti-GMO types. And that sort of confuses me a bit, because that just wasn't the case when we were growing up. But I don't know.
I think because anti-science has just become basically the right-wing staple and everything. And I don't understand how you can claim to be the most masculine type by being anti-science. Again, one of the more positive traits I was taught about masculinity growing up was being objective and rational, and being always looking facts in the face. Nice. And there's nothing objective or rational about denying science.
No. Well, people who generally deny COVID or sort of vaccines and stuff, I usually view them with quite suspicion. Stay out of my way. I want nothing to do with you. But I don't know, it's a paradigm shift that has happened. They also say that the left wing is also more pro-war than it used to be. That's because they feel
more
left. Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, the neoliberals, they're a little bit more shaky there, but I think I kind of drifted a little bit in my conversation because I sort of lost myself. But I think with people like Jason Williamson, I think we could have a much more approachable pathway for those on the right to be hearing left-wing masculine voices because they think that the left is feminized. On surface value, it may seem that way, but I'll tell you right now, it's the left that brought unions and helped out with strikes. Most men work in professions that are sort of unionized. It's the left that promoted industry projects and Keynesian financing for that sort of thing. NHS, that was all the left. You pay your tax, but you got something in return. It was the left that also helped promote working class people to get a proper education and means
these are all
public
left-wing,
transport.
because these are all left-wing policies. These are all left-wing principles.
Absolutely there. And what I'm seeing with today's sort of so-called left, or let's just say we call them the neoliberals or the centers, is that they're somehow putting, traditional masculinity in the form of class divides. Because upper class masculine types are viewed as a sort of effeminate or non-threatening, but they'll look down on working class men types as being uncouth or aggressive. I'll tell you right now, you can thank your plumbers and your construction workers goodbye, and even your immigrants, because most immigrants that come to this country are predominantly men, legal and illegal. So it's a two-way street. Maybe I am a men's rights activist, but I'm not. I just look out for the best interests in people.
Thank you very much for that input. Just trying to think what else is there to cover and everything. We've talked about how just the heightism regarding masculinity, modern masculinity depictions. We've covered the concept of solving things with violence. We've covered rampant misogyny. I mean,
Pornography?
Pardon?
Pornography?
What'd you say?
Because that's
Well, we
porn.
can talk about
That always
pornography
affects
because
men.
yeah, because I've talked about all these young men who voted for like Trump in 2024. I'm just thinking, you are aware if he gets Project 2025 through, he's going to ban porn, and that's not going to benefit young men in the slightest. I mean, who wants to consume porn more than young guys? And you're going to vote for someone who's going to frickin' try to take it away from you.
Well, that's the irony there. Like I say, with some of the other stuff we were talking about, they think they're voting for this because, hey, manosphere, Tate and Rogan, they all got all the answers. But they may not be ready for the consequences. And when push comes to shove, they'll be crying for someone else too. People's voting choices can be quite fickle as far as I'm concerned. Now, I'm a little bit different. Maybe I am a soy boy, so I find most pornography quite exploitative, as is most prostitution. It's hard to ban and regulate, but some things are best left unseen and undone. I don't understand why, because I've never been on Pornhub. I only just know just based on hearsay. Most platform videos, from what I'm told, are ones that involve extreme fetish material. For men, they always live by the immediate thrill. Women generally tend to take their time to appreciate things and a little bit more referential. Men, we don't have that capacity as much. We tend to operate based on the here and now, and we're visual creatures.
A bit more impulsive. But yeah,
absolutely.
Again, we don't know. I don't know how much of this is actually biological nature and how much of this is nurture and everything. Remember, a lot of this can just be based on how we're raised and everything. Again, in our Western society, patriarchal society. That's just what my 2 cents. Also, I suppose one of the things I always like to talk about in these online manosphere rings is the concept of alpha, beta, sigma, or is it gamma and omega males. And without getting too much into that shit is fucking bollocks.
The only one I know is alpha and beta. I guess I am a beta male because I'm not
Well,
construction work.
there
I
are no
can't
such.
fix
Well,
cars.
these this alpha male, it's all crap anyway. A guy I follow online just simply said it's just astrology for guys. Yeah, me. Yeah, guys will make fun of women for believing astrology, and to be fair, so do I, because astrology is utter bollocks. But they will believe in something as utter crap as that. I mean, yeah, just these are manosphere influences really need to just cannot disappear quickly enough because they are fucking with so many people's minds. I swear it
No, and
started
that's
with the likes of Carl Benjamin, or was better known as Sargon of Akkad.
I know who you're talking about. He was the guy with the gaming and the new atheism, wasn't he?
Well, I think it was part of the New Age. I mean, he never really did much on atheism, but it was part of the manosphere and everything. He was involved in Gamergate, and yeah, he was part of the yeah, he was just part of the online misogynistic movement that targeted the likes of Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn and briefly Lacey Green before she did a face heel turn. But he's a fucking asshole and he can fucking do it. He also sent a rape tweet to MP Jess Phillips, saying I wouldn't even rape you. So yeah, he can probably go fuck himself, and I believe he has because he's not. I don't think he has any more relevance anymore. At least his relevance is ever decreasing.
Well, you know who's also filling the void on that is people like Asmon Gold, who I only know about because he done some sort of tweet about I don't care about Palestinians being murdered. Well, talk about irony because most of the people who are fighting for a free Palestine are predominantly men. So there you go. But his racism showed among many others, and then you get all these people like him being on Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson doing interviews, and they're being platformed, getting good quite a bit of money. And Lawrence Fox is on GB News, or he used to be. Now he's doing his own little thing called Reclaim the Media. So it's actually very profitable to be part of this grift, and it seems to me you see a lot more of those types of faces than you ever see people on the left. And I'm sure probably people are probably sick of me bringing this up because that's all you see on the internet. Every time I'm clicking something, it's always like sort of those self-help podcasters and Theo Vaughn. I don't know half of these people. I only just know them because they're somehow linked with Trump. I don't know. It's just no. I feel powerless, and there's just not enough sort of people who can speak on my political or social worldview to say, well, Alice Capel's a woman and she's French, so that doesn't quite qualify the same thing. I've seen a few Jimmy Giant videos. He's got some interesting things to say, and he said he's reformed. He used to be a right winger, but now he's an economic leftist. But
Well, yeah, Jimmy Joe. Well, he said he was right wing in his youth, but then he started to see through the bullshit and realized what absolute grifters and con artists, plus just absolute hate-filled monsters they are. And he realized just how they just brainwash people into young men into joining their cause. But out and just he's spending more time now just exposing their grift and trying to get people away from just how much they suck.
Well, I wish him the best of luck as far as I'm concerned. They'll call it BreadTube. They'll accuse him of being woke. But it needs to be said, YouTube's algorithms, that's part of the reason why I'm not doing as many videos these days, or even film reviews. The channel was originally made for film reviews, but I started doing it a lot less because I'm not fitting the algorithm's agenda. And this was even before, Google's CEO and all them lot, and Zuckerberg and Musk were at his inauguration, standing by the side, smiling, pretending like nothing's a problem. It's all artificially engineered, and I don't want to be part of it. So I ask the audience out there listening, get rid of all your social media. It's not doing you any good. You may think it is, but they'll spy on you, keep track of all your information and your strokes and clicks and messages. And if you focus on that, more so than, oh, it's left wing or right wing, you'll be better for it. But
I
no
mean,
one
there
will
could be
take my
some.
advice.
Well, I mean, there could be something to be said for that, but the problem is, though, social media is so ingrained into our modern society. It could be just like social media could just be like getting rid of your television or getting rid of your radio. It just comes a point where it just thinks that it might not be pragmatic to do so.
Well, to some extent, yes. Also, because a lot of them are integrated. YouTube is owned by Google. Can't escape from that. If you don't want to use Instagram anymore, you'll use WhatsApp. Oh, oops, I'm a hypocrite. Yep, that's all owned by Meta, so there's no way to escape from it. But there is one bit of positive news. Just recently, Tesla sales have been increasing quite badly because Elon Musk keep his mouth
Oh yeah,
shut.
his stocks have basically dropped. That's great. And of course, Elon Musk. There's another good example of someone who's a horrendous role model for anyone basically, because he is an absolute cunt, as is Donald Trump.
No, absolutely. You know, I could say, how bad and evil they are, but that's not really going to change anyone's opinion, really. So it has to be said, but the sad reality is everyone's made their minds up. But the thing with Musk, and I'll speak on this because, yes, I'm coming out of the closet. I have autism. Happy now, everyone? I'm almost like a man child. That's what people view autistic people as. Like, I do with my Yu-Gi-Oh cards. But Musk is not doing people with neurodivergence any favors. In fact, he's the most public face of it, and we see how he's turned out.
Well, they use it to justify it, to excuse any of the horrible stuff he does, like that Nazi salute. Where it's like, dude, that's nothing to do with him being autistic.
Are you
And he
still
was
there?
not saying my heart
You all
goes.
right?
Yes, still here.
But what was the bit that you said? Because it cut off a little bit.
Right. Okay. I was talking about how basically they use Musk's autism to excuse all the horrible things he does, like that Nazi salute, where it's like, sorry, most autistic people don't do freaking Nazi salutes, and he sure as and he was trying to say my heart goes out to you. Well, he would have probably done it in a different manner.
Well, he has no filter. It's always about him and his little empire. You couldn't
We've never
tame
needed
the
one.
empire of Tesla.
We've never freaking needed one because he's just gone through his entire life basically just never been told no. To say nothing, he's having a complete midlife crisis right now.
Exactly there.
To give the worst kind of a divorced dad energy.
Well, here's the irony. You just said that. He's like 52, 53. Why does he look like he's a 35-year-old weirdo? What type of man-child vaccines or chemicals has he been using on him? Because he looks too young for his age.
That's not about his age, though. That's not actually an insult, though. Obviously, he's doing all kinds of things to stop himself from aging. If you actually get a good look at him sometimes, you may realize, oh no, the age is actually there. You just have to look at. You can just see it a bit harder. I think he's using hair plugs as well and all.
Well, with that kind of money, he can buy his way out of anything, I suppose. But even though for those people who are listening, they think, I want nothing to do with Musk. I'm not going to use X. I'm not going to drive a Tesla. Well, you can't escape from it entirely because even Zuckerberg wants in on some of that musky energy. You've seen the videos that he said about, I want this big masculine energy and changing his
I try not to watch any. I try not to watch any video that he makes and everything. Of course, that's another example of toxic masculinity. Would be, of course, hormone replacement and doing steroids, like I did when I was 18. So yeah, again, big example of a whole toxic masculinity. and everything, which, oh God. Basically, I think in a nutshell, if anyone's ever read my Evil Busters book, a great advice for men is don't be like David Hunter.
And you can find his book available on Amazon. I believe the price is about $9.99. Support independent publishing whenever you can. But yes, take Rob's word for it. You'll learn a thing or two, and you'll also have a good laugh as well. But
Yeah.
this was not an easy podcast to do because I know we're touching a nerve with a lot of people who probably watch our videos anyways, because the majority of people who are obsessed with film ratings and stuff for gaming are predominantly boys or men. That's just a fact. I mean, I will say this, one of the most masculine things any man can do is help out when danger is afoot. I've had to do that on several occasions. Like, don't put your hand near the stove on the fire, or don't walk. There's a car coming through and you might get hit. If you can do that step, then you're already there, trying to build that framework. Because I don't know, that was probably a bad way to end things, but I'm just stating it out there because some people really need an education. Because what I'm seeing is they're being told one thing, but there's a lot more things that are involved that even are beyond their control. And the next thing you know, while they watch this manosphere shit, they'll get bombed by Russia any minute, and they'll have no one to turn to. They'll be crying, "Well, it's the feminists, it's the gays, the immigrants.
Shit,
They did
basically,
it."
yeah, I know. I mean, a lot of the I think a lot of these 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 sort of manosphere dubros now are all big in Russia up because Putin's basically exemplifying everything that they want to support. Basically, a white Christian guy trying to dominate other people. And
Exactly.
it's just, yeah, and it's so messed up. Even though, you know, Zelensky's a white guy and he's pretty Christian and he's like acting defensive, so they should just by means, bigging him up. But it's all messed up. I mean,
Well, I'll tell you one
yeah,
thing. Volodymyr Zelensky is probably the best politician anyone could have right now. Coming from being a comedian to that's a pretty tall order. I have a lot more respect for him than I have for even Starmer or Joe Biden or Trudeau.
well, yeah.
We have really no sort of nowhere to turn to, really, because everyone's either, they want to play it safe like Starmer or they're just kissing ass. Like you've got with, Trump and stuff who have their hands way too tied. It would need World War III to sort of break a few things and get people waking up to smell the coffee again, but I think we're already past that point. And the only way you're going to survive is, well, excluding the suicide stuff, because I could get into some legal trouble about that. It's mainly just to isolate yourself, because there's a lot of people that want you dead. You have no one to turn to, and even if you are a man trying to reform yourself from these hyper masculine peculiarities, they might not be so forgiving next time. They may say, "Well, we want nothing to do with you." A good example of this, Kevin Spacey. When he was caught being inappropriate with those young men, he tried to blame it on, "Oh, I'm gay," just that. No, he's got pedophilic tendencies, and he was using his abuses of power as a well-known actor to get away with stuff. Don't try to, climb on board with certain groups as protection, because they may not be so forgiving to you.
Exactly. I mean, generally speaking, they're not exactly people that have your best interests at mind. They're just trying to take you for a mug and basically, yeah, well, just that basically.
Exactly. There.
Have we concluded this? Shall we leave it there and just start to conclude this episode?
If you like, yeah, I think we've more or less said what we've had to say, although I may want to get this out of the way. I do wish sometimes Rob Bavister would be like Rambo, you know, some big hyper masculine stud out there with an AK-47 fighting against the fascists. That would be wonderful. Maybe I'm sort of projectioning some sort of fantasy upon you. Don't worry, I'm not into you. No,
yes,
no.
I'm aware of what you mean. Okay, and we all have ideas of what people should be, but yeah, no.
Well, you don't want to be
Okay.
Rambo?
Not well, not really. Okay, I have no interest in really being a PTSD addled Vietnam vet or veteran of any war. I've no, not really wish to go to war. Again, just trying to live my life, basically.
All right then. Well, might want to get ready to be Rambo in case the Russians come and bomb Cardiff. I hope to God they don't, but I know for certain I would be on there on the front lines hunting a few asses just to save this country from itself. Sometimes they might not even need saving if people are willing to waste it away. But I'm going to stop from there. I think we've said our piece. If you have any last minute thoughts, let's get out of the way. But for men out there, careful what you wish for. That is all I can say in return. Otherwise, the devil might want to ask for something in return. And if you can't deliver it, you might as well be dead to them.
Right. Okie dokie. Okay. Well, with that in mind, yeah. Hope everyone got something out of this podcast, and yeah, and hope
right.
so. Yeah, helps people define themselves a bit better. Other than that, peace out.
All right, then. Peace out, everyone. Speak to Jason Statham and Richard Iowade at another time.